this is like you want like so I've never agreed with this. I don't understand this term, right? But you want to like have your cake and eat it too, right? So people want black culture, quote unquote, urban culture, to be normalized. But when it is, and people start using the slang of this culture because it is normalized, you point at them and say, "Hey, you're a bad person for using this slang that we told you
there's a difference
normalized."
between making something normalized and co-opting a term, though, right? Like literally,
No.
and it's not just like co-opting
Not
the
really.
term; it's also co-opting like aspects of the culture, right? Like when someone is like blackfishing, for example, they've taken on and normalized parts of African American culture, but clearly they're doing it to get like all the benefits without like having the lack of privilege that's like connected.
The point
I
think even assuming that there's a lack of privilege is really silly.
It's okay. Chill. Let me finish my point. My point is that like it's not normalizing being black when you use the terminology in the vernacular. To normalize being black, like you would have to be black in this country and be treated the same as everyone else, and that's not what happens in this country.
We're not talking about normalizing being black, right? Because again, the reason I keep saying like urban culture is because there are lots of black people in this country who grew up in like middle class suburban neighborhoods who do not speak like this, right? Because this is typically the way that people who grew up in like inner city, poor areas grew up, right? And when people outside of that start talking like this, it's typically because they've interacted with that culture through music or some other media, right? So those people too are co-opting a culture, right? So the black people who grew up in in the suburbs, not wealthy as fuck with all the privilege, who use the N-word with an A, are also co-opting a culture that isn't theirs.
That's.
Go.
No, go ahead.
Can I just shortly? I just want to say I'm leaving.
Okay.
Good night. Goodbye. Everyone have a good time. I really like talking to you all. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Let's go to Blair and then Dan and then Neon wants to jump in. That's fine.
I was actually going to say the same thing. I don't know that I can add a whole lot of value to the conversation, but I've enjoyed it. I appreciate you having me on and look forward to hopefully jumping on with you guys again.
Yeah, sure. You don't need permission to leave, so here's just. But thank you so much. I do appreciate you coming on. Please come again. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Later.
Yeah. All right. Next, what was it? Dan.
Yeah, I want to also add another aspect to much of the N-word discourse. There is at least some different languages like Spanish and Korean that does have the version of the N-word as exactly to something different. At least for Spanish, it's the one version of it. For Korean, I believe it's something else, completely something else it's completely unrelated to color or whatnot.
You're talking about Chinese and that?
Yeah, or at least through the language, it definitely would sound like someone saying the N-word. But to the context, I would say much of these to people, I think, could easily be confused. Like, even to these cultures who come to the United States and then say their word in their language, or at least for easy enough for those who are Spanish, who go around and say specifically like this, that N-word specifically, and then some African American person who might feel extremely offended about this whole thing, but to her culture, or at least to her language, that word is exactly to the color of black, for example. Do you understand what I mean?
So I think what's like really important is like it's not just the word itself; it's like how it's being used, right? Like if someone's approaching another human being, and like so, the first time I heard the N-word, this 7-year-old approached 7-year-old me and was like, "You are a N-word," right? When that was done, I understood that the person took that word and used it to directly reference me. And like that's the type of thing that we're referring to. If there is someone who is Chinese, speaking Mandarin Chinese, and they're saying the word that, which in Chinese sounds a lot like the soft A version, then it could be misconstrued. But it's very, very clear that they're speaking a different language. Yeah. It's very, very clear that there's a confrontation. It'll probably resolve itself, right? Like they're not like looking at someone and saying that, right? They're looking at like objects and saying that, so it'll be fine.
But what about like if specifically if like a a kid who is like bilingual to Spanish or English, and they're like maybe 4 or 5, and they are learning how to do colors, and then they point at like something like concrete, and they say the.
Is there going to be a
N-word.
5-year-old that gets beat up because they said the N-word?
No, I think it just could
Well,
be
they're gonna
very
say
confusing.
negro, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I think we're like looking for like outliers when like the real problem is just like, you know, very clear indications of there's like someone who's trying to insult someone else, right? When someone is actually trying to be offensive to someone else, then like I think the temporary insanity like flies. And then if it's like a situation where there was an accident, then I don't think the temporary insanity would fly, right? Like,
No,
I
but
think it's
there's
like very clear cut, and there'd be
there's
judges.
so
that would,
much
like,
more. There's so much more behind temporary insanity. It's not just, oh, you said this word, therefore you were temporary insane. Like it's not that. It's context. It's like history behind the situation. What
Yeah.
was like? It's so much more than. But you're saying just make a list. It
No,
doesn't matter.
I'm not
There is
saying
no.
like I'm not saying like okay, you automatically get a get out of jail free card if you say these words, right? It's like someone says the word, and you're having a really bad day at work. You stubbed your toe that morning, and you forgot to take whatever that day, and you end up accidentally killing someone, right? Like there is like some sort of
Yeah, but you don't need
you can like
to
link it all together.
But you could have that exact same situation without even addressing the N word. Like,
well, we do, but
like
we can also
yeah,
just
but
be
I'm
very
saying that
specific.
it already is the case. I'm saying is you could have a really bad day at work. You could go to work and someone could call you a bitch, and you could snap. And like so, this law that we already have in place would already apply.
Does
So I don't understand what they're trying to add to it.
I didn't think it did.
Yeah,
I thought it didn't. But
it didn't apply to what? Wait,
you'd
didn't apply to what?
you'd actually be charged with like second degree murder and some shit like that, or for like snapping.
Wait,
and
I'm just wait. What do you
Yeah,
mean it didn't
type
apply?
of-
What
It'd
y'all
be
saying
the
it didn't apply to?
unmeditated type of murder, I believe.
Because like the reason why I kind of mentioned a lot of this is that I have been confronted for miscontextualized by African American man who thought that I said the N word, but I was like speaking Spanish with my like my sister and whatnot, and like I've seen that to be confused. If after this kind of would happen to me to other people who do speak a bit of Spanish or whatnot, then I don't know what else to say for others who come to that realization, or at least come to the United States and end up dealing with it too. So I do think that this can be an issue, somewhat at least to a misunderstanding.
so they first tried to do this in 1994, and it doesn't say what happened. It was proposed by a psychologist in 1968. Oh, sorry, go ahead without me. I'll tell
oh
you.
yeah. This I don't think this temporary insanity, and I hate this idea. I hate the idea like in its core, because what does it say? Once again, you say the magic word, and then black people freak out and be violent with you. They might be temporarily insane, right? Because you said that word, right? And then but then of course we say like, well, how could the media paint black people as violent, right?
Yeah, that's a shit take. You're right. Fuck.
Yeah, I was kind of gonna get to that. I think Malad has a point when at the end of the day, there's a distinction of like the matter of intent. You know, that's important as well. But what Doobie said is something that, and I think I had tried to elucidate it when the last time I spoke, but when it comes to like the N-word, especially with an A, it's kind of, at least in some of the neighborhoods that I lived in, it's not just kind of in a bubble with black people, right? You know, it's kind of with all the poor people that have a lot of black friends. You know, you have like Spanish people. The place I'm from is majority black, but it kind of goes outside of that. So I think it gets a lot more complicated when you just try to boil it down to intent on whether or not you want these people who are not black, who use the A word. I mean, we brought up Kendrick Lamar, right? Like these kids, they listen to the music, they rap the lyrics, right? They're not black, but they use the word. Right, so I do think it becomes a lot more complicated, especially in that case when it comes to.
So if we can't use so if victims can't be used to like police language, then the only other avenue would be an authority doing it or not doing it. So I guess like the question is like, how can authority regulate the language of folks who are unwilling to concede the point?
Well,
I think at the end of the day,
or the question is, how do we teach people to be less sensitive about naughty words being said around them?
yeah.
Right? And to take cultural context into account when they hear a thing, right? And to stop spreading myths about Black people being like just prone to violence all the fucking time, right? By saying, oh, if somebody says this word around you, of course you just got to beat them the fuck up because they said the naughty word, even if they didn't mean it in a bad way, even if they said it with an A, right? Oh God, if they say that around you, even if they're just just the way they speak or whatever the fuck, if they're not Black, you get to beat them up, and all your friends get to beat them up.
But like that's not even the point, right? Because like
that is
literally because the thing is, like, you're trying to make it seem like there's like this scenario where people say the N word.
That's not an often scenario. Like people get beat up for saying the like N word.
They don't like that is like exactly, like it is like a very infrequent thing.
You'll get checked. You'll be like, hey bro, like chill out with that. But nobody.
Yeah, that was like my encounter.
Wait, hold on. What Gambit and other people have advocated for repeatedly, and he can come in here if he's around, right? Is that if somebody says a word around you, you can beat them the fuck up, right? And it's totally fine.
Yeah.
If a non-Black person says the N-word with an A around you, even if they don't mean it in a like pejorative way, right? If they're using it the same way that it's used colloquially by white and brown and Asian and Black people all over this fucking country that listen to music and interact with this culture, if they say it, right, they don't have the pass, so you can beat them the fuck up, right? And it's totally fine.
That's not right. You can't say right. Like that's just what that's not really what's spread. It's more like, hey, like chill the fuck out, bro, kind of thing.
Can someone have the clip of GGS saying that?
Yeah, I'm sure you can find it. He said it last time I was on panel with him. You can, in fact, there's a really good video with a beautiful intro, right, on Prime's YouTube channel, where we're having a panel about exactly that, and I said the N-word, and everybody freaked the fuck out and talked about how they beat me up if they weren't person with me, right?
All
like this. So this is their position.
All right. If I could, I would like to get the link so I could get the full context of that.
Well, like think about it though, like this: the people that are gonna beat you up for that word are more likely are gonna be people that are more likely to beat you up for other things, too.
Yeah, they're like emotionally
they're already the aggressive, violent type.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's just that word that triggers that to happen. If you were to call them a bitch, they're gonna beat you up. If you were to call them the C word with a T at the end, they're gonna beat you up. You know what I mean? But if they're most people are reasonable, most Black people are reasonable, and they're gonna be like, hey, chill the fuck out. And if you don't, and you escalate it, then there's a potential for a physical altercation, but that would be based off of your actions after.
No. What you just did right there, right?
What?
Like you said.
Yeah, you basically just said.
Yeah, like you. At first, you say the person who is going to likely hit you, right, is going to be a person who's violent, right? A violent individual. Then you say that most Black people aren't like that, right? In those situations, if you say it, right, then they'd ask you to stop, and then you could escalate, and then at that point, they might attack you any which way. Meaning all of us are like that.
I guess that's how it could be construed, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it could be escalated to that situation. If you're gonna use a violent word at somebody, then you're probably gonna be violated.
That's not a violent word.
It is a violent word. Like, well, not the A
N-word with the A. Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about.
Wait. Violent.
So when you say escalate, you mean if someone says it and you tell them, "Hey, chill out"? Does escalate means they say it again?
Yeah, they say it again in a harsher term. Like if they say it again in a harsher, like with a harsher connotation.
Okay. So your white friend is rapping along to Kendrick Lamar, and they say the word, and you say, "Hey, chill out." And the song's still going on, and they decide they're going to sing it when it comes on the next bar.
No, this is a very specific situation as to what I'm saying that you potentially would bring a reasonable person to using violence as a solution.
Yeah, this is the situation.
Wait, hold on. So really quickly. So if your white friend was rapping along to Kendrick Lamar because he's like a fan or whatever the fuck, and the N-word with an A is in the song, so he says it, like you'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
You gotta read, as a white person, you gotta read the room. In my opinion, you gotta read the room.
But
Like,
you
that's
keep going. You keep
part of it
going
right
back to
there,
this.
right?
Every person, you got to
Like
read
you
the
keep going back to this. Like you say you're not for it, but now you're saying, well, read the room, because if you say it, then like
no, I'm just saying personally, I would be reasonable and be like, hey, like I wouldn't care. Like I'm just saying, like this is all general terms. I'm not saying my experience or my anecdotal experience or anything
okay,
like
so
that. I'm
you
saying
would be reasonable, you wouldn't care, but in general,
I wouldn't care.
But he
I'm
don't-
saying
yeah,
there's-
but you say you're not talking about you. Say you're talking about in general. So if we
In
like if we
general.
just go to that Kendrick Lamar concert and you look at the video, it seems like in general, most of the black people were against this white girl singing along and just saying the N word in the song.
That's very weird.
Yeah, we're not talking about people like using the hard R towards somebody in like a pejorative way. We're talking about like
Okay.
people.
Then I
You know,
don't-
you're talking
I don't
to.
care. It's a free country, man. Like say what you want.
Yeah, yeah, hold on. But like you already said, like Vanilla, when he was talking to you, he said, "Oh, he's reasonable," but he's already defined how reasonable, his version of reasonable. And his version of reasonable is that you'll say it, and then like he'll ask you to stop, and then you'll keep saying it, and then he's like, "Oh, okay, well now it's time for violence." That's reasonable to you.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that a reasonable person would ask you to stop, and potentially that if you're gonna keep using it, and this is all in pejorative, like in a pejorative way. If somebody's dropping hard R's on you, and you're like, "Hey, chill out," and they just keep.
But we're not talking about the hard R's.
No. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. One way or other. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying a reasonable person is gonna hear hard R's and be like, they're gonna take offense to that, and depending on how they react to situations, it might result in a physical altercation.
Okay, but yeah, exactly. But that's the reason. This is what you said was reasonable. Is that you're reasonable too? If someone doesn't stop, right, that gives you permission to attack them.
No.
Okay.
Depends on the situation, though. I would say, like, I think there's like some scenarios where, like,
where you,
I think it would be totally justified.
I mean, it really just depends on like the language being used and like where you're at and like how safe it is to like just leave the situation, right? I mean, like you don't actually know what.
That's different when you're bringing in others, right? Like we're assuming that because if we take in all those possible variables as to like what could the situation be, right? And like if there are exits, or if you're being literally surrounded by people.
What I'm saying is like fight or flight, right? Like so, like if I'm in a situation where I can leave the situation, like if I have an asshole friend who's being an asshole, I just don't hang out with asshole, and then I don't have to punch him.
Yeah.
But if I can't leave asshole, I'm stuck with asshole. Like let's say we're in like this like small room together. And like I'm gonna be stuck with this fuck for 12 hours, and they're like being an asshole. I would absolutely have no problems, like dealing with it.
But also, like,
because I'm stuck with them for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what comes with that word? If they're continuously dropping the hard R, there's a potential that there is going to be violence on their end based on you.
True.
So it's like that, like just based off of how history has gone, you're gonna automatically be in a situation where you're.
Yeah,
the thing is, like, again, if I can leave, I'm very happy to just do that. That's
what
do you
mean, not necessarily?
Not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll be attacked, right?
There's a lot of stupid ass white people that just say the ER and they don't think anything's gonna happen when they say it. You know what I mean?
How am I supposed to know when people have been hung and people like we have Ahmaud Arbery cases and stuff like that? How am I supposed to know that your intentions aren't to hurt me?
Well, then
when you're saying words that people that use to hurt people,
then you fall back. Then right, you get out of there.
But
right?
But I'm only using that in a situation where you're not able to escape, like when you're not able to leave the situation, remove yourself.
I think there's more context to that situation. I think there's more context to the situation when you're dealing with a person that wants to hang you, right?
Well, there's so much nuance to this whole conversation. So these are all singular. But when I say a reasonable person, this is the steps that would be happening. You drop a hard ER in an aggressive way, I'm gonna say, hey, please chill out. If you don't, and I can leave, I'm gonna remove myself from the conversation in the situation. If I cannot remove myself from the situation, and it also depends on if I can move myself in the situation based off of the control you have in the situation. You know what I mean? If they control the situation and they're saying that, then automatically I'm flying into that mentality. But if it's just we're at school, you're saying that, I'm just gonna walk away. But if you're
but how do you walk away out of a classroom if you're in class, right?
Wait, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
A lot of people end up like kind of being held captive, like with these like racists or bullies. Like, you know, typically if people can walk away, usually they will, right? But like in situations where you're like at work or you're at school or whatever, you know, and you're held captive.
I mean, if you're at school, you just leave anyway. Yeah. Like, yeah, you break a rule. Like you break the can't leave this classroom rule, you leave anyway. And when they ask why did you break that rule, you say, well, this guy was being a shitter and this is why.
And I asked him to stop, and he didn't stop. And
I'm literally saying, but when I'm saying you can't leave, I mean like literally a situation where like, you know, you can't.
But we know that there are plenty of schools and even workplaces that don't give a shit about those issues, right? Even if they're compelled to by the law, like you're gonna get like an attorney every time. Like most legal issues are not thought out. You know, like this is what we talk about. Like,
so let's say a school
institutional racism. Like I'm sure that people have heard like white kids in school like refer to black kids like in a racist way to their face, and a teacher or like some authority figure looked the other way. Right, I know I have, and that those are the situations that like we're talking about.
Can I slow you down on institutionalized racism real quick, just because like it's a little bit deeper than just the social issue when we're talking about like I don't want to just break it.
Okay, I didn't mean to use like a buzzword. I was just trying to
because it's just
throw something out we can relate to.
Yeah, definitely something that people can grab onto.
I'm just want to ask Dre a question. Then I gotta go. Actually,
yes, sir.
So the question is, because we had like a disagreement earlier, right, about what a man should do if he's being like punked by a person, right? So, if you're like at a party or something, right, and someone's standing in front of you, calling you the N-word with like an ER, right? They're intending to like insult you in front of everybody, like punk you in front of everybody. Do you think it'd be unreasonable to punch them in the face?
That's a tough question. Do I got some drinks in me?
No drinks in you. You're just at this party. This dude.
I'm cooling.
Oh, God damn it.
I'm good.
Juby, by the way, I just want to let you know, by the way, that time we had the whole selling your flesh argument, like, what was it, like 2 months ago?
I totally destroyed you in that debate and convinced everybody.
You convinced everybody, but then, like, shit happened, and it turned out I was right the whole time, and you convinced everybody to take the wrong take. Yeah, I posted it.
Okay, you posted an article where like poor children, like poor people are being forced to sell their organs.
I just wanted you to know. No, you have to go. It's fine. Go ahead.
Nobody in that was arguing that it was okay to like put people into a position where they need to sell their organs. We're saying that if somebody wants to sell their organs, it's totally fine. It's totally ethical.
Yeah, and I was letting you know what happens, right? What did I say? I said that if people are allowed to do it, you'll have situations like this that happen.
Oh, okay. Well, you have situations where poor people who are struggling for money, who have no other way to provide any kind of like marketable skill to the world to get some money to survive, have the ability to sell a body part and get some money to survive and feed their children. It sounds pretty good to me.
No, except it wasn't. If you read the article.
It was.
I have to go too. I just want to rub it in that you were wrong.
That
it's 5 other people to be wrong. That's 3 actually, because I got you with the whole Bobby Tents.
About this loss.
I got you the flesh eating and flesh selling, and I forgot what the third one was.
Are you guys gonna make out or what?
He's sad because I destroyed him in like multiple debates.
I'm actually pissed that you convinced 5 people to have the wrong take.
It was a correct.
I was right. You just convinced them otherwise. Okay. I'm gonna go 2, but
lots of coping.
I don't have a good comeback for that.
It's okay.
That's okay. I know I'm right. So
okay, before you go, Juby, right? I guess my main problem. You can leave, Madeline. My main problem is that you deciding these things for the people, right? Like you're a Mexican, and I don't decide what's hurtful for you, right? You tell me what your people say.
I'm a brown American, okay?
What your people, your Mexican people,
what
they find insulting, right? Like I don't know what that is, right? So maybe you would tell me something. Maybe if I insult your music, right? Whatever your cultures are, like that's what you get to do,
music?
Right? You. Yeah, I
don't listen to Mexican music. I'm an American. Fuck.
There is some.
What I'm saying What I'm saying, Prime, right, is I'm not saying that I can tell another person, hey, you can't be offended by this thing. I'm saying there's some things that it's unreasonable to be offended by, and if we come to one of those things and I think you're being unreasonable, then we need to make a decision. Either we work it out and I decide either that I like you enough not to do this thing around you, or I don't, and we just can't be friends anymore. Like, it's that simple. I think that's fine. I have the same thing with a lot of my friends in burping. I cannot stand it.
That, Prime. I don't like Doobie's takes. What's wrong with that? That sounds.
I cannot stand it when people pass gas in any form around me. Burping, farting, I will not tolerate it ever. Right? So if they can do that, they can't respect that. They can't be my friends.
Burping or farting, like farting, something that they really can't control.
They can. They can clench their butt.
Yeah.
They cannot burp. They cannot fart around me. I will not tolerate it.
You're talking about the sound, so that's the problem.
The idea that they would disrespect me enough to pass their gas around me in a way that in like the range where I can hear it and first off hear it, but then they do, where I might like breathe it in, right?
What if they're in the car though?
I've had this discussion. They need to hold it. Right? I've had this discussion with my girlfriend recently, right? Where she's like, "Oh, why are you so weird about this?" I'm like, "No, hey, if you need to burp, go to the fucking restroom, close the door, turn on the fan, burp into a corner, and then come back. Simple. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to hear it. I'm not interested."
I look okay. So I have a family member who like does a thing with their throat and it's really funny. Like, oh, it's like you know, like how people like bring up phlegm, right?
Yeah, I fucking hate that.
Yes.
I have a family member who does that every fucking morning. And I can't.
That shit would drive me nuts.
I can't fucking stand it. I like, no, the good thing is, usually I'm like unconscious because I'm like, I sleep after this, right? But when I'm not, I have to experience that bullshit. And, I can't stand it. But like,
don't say it too loud, they'll start up.
Oh.
Hey, Prime, is it allergies? Because I know that like,
no, it's not allergies.
He got that same shit. My uncle does that.
It's not allergies.
But it's like, it's nasty.
It's fucking nasty, and I can assure it's not allergies. It happens year round. But
allergies are like you can have year round. I have year round allergies.
It's not an allergy. It's just a thing that doesn't. And I don't even give a shit. I don't give a shit because you can do it quietly, right? Which is my difference with Doobie, right? Like my problem is that I'm aware that they are doing this thing, that I hear the noise, right?
Yeah, but it's not just about the noise for him. It's about like the odor, or like the material gas.
It's the disrespect. It's the disrespect. That they would think that I would be someone they could like pass their gas around me and like make me like potentially smell it. And if it's worse, there's this thing that people, if we're eating, right, from like near you, we're eating food, and you burp, like. You got to understand when you burp, right? You're not just like, it's not just a sound and like a smell. There's like particles that are coming out of your mouth and floating into the air.
That's what I just said, Prime.
That's what's happening when you're breathing.
With all kinds of shit in it, right? And this is gonna go over the food and it's gonna go over my food, and I'm just not fucking interested.
He says he
doesn't want the burp particles on his food.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
Have you ever ridden on an airplane?
Yeah, unfortunately, I just use a mask. There's and this is like so when I've gone into the ocean, I avoid going into the ocean. But when this has happened, right? I got to cope with reality that I'm swimming in water that is full of piss and shit and spit and semen and all kinds of crazy shit from thousands of years of humanity, right? Like this is not good. This is why I don't drink. This is why I don't go. This is why I don't go in swimming pools with people. Right?
Wait, Doobie, do you let people blow out the candles over a birthday cake?
No, I don't. So I don't. Well, I don't eat cake, so they can do it. I'm just not gonna eat it. But like this is why I don't go into swimming pools with people, because I don't want to be in a swimming pool with the guys like fucking crusty balls, this soaking up the water, swimming around in like the fucking particles of toilet paper that were stuck to his ass when he went in there. I'm just not interested.
Dude, don't talk about me like that.
I'm just not. I can't.
No. Okay, so
are you a germaphobe?
I get the.
No, I'm not a germaphobe.
That's interesting. That's actually very
that's
interesting.
Are you sure?
Are you sure about that?
I'm a germaphobe, and I'll admit that. You're not a germaphobe.
I'm a clean person. Okay, I like.
How extreme is your germophobia?
Okay, so you're a germaphobe. Got it. All right,
what the fuck?